What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I do want to go over a pretty interesting question. Will police chases ever be in Motorfest in the future? Now, I am going to say right off the bat, many people are probably going to go, yeah, okay, Blocked. I don't think police cars or even police chases are ever going to be in this game. And that is probably going to come down to multiple different factors I am going to talk about. So first things first, we do know there is going to be a vault interception type of units in this game. We will see that with like the Bugatti Chiron and the Lamborghini Veneno. We also have like the Dodge Demon there in the Street Tier 2 category. And there is also going to be a few different vault interception type of units in the Rally Raid category as well. Now the only thing about this though is all of these cars were back in the Crew 2 in those updates then. Now the one difference with those events though is a lot of players are probably going to want a proper police chase or at least something like that if it was to come out in this game. We do know back in the Crew 2 you basically jumped into like an interception unit vehicle and then it basically prompted you to take down like 8 to 12 of them to win it. I'm not going to lie here, guys, I wasn't the biggest fan of those events at all, and I would almost say most players were probably going to agree with that, but if we were to have a proper police chase in Motorfest, would it actually work? And the biggest question here is, would they actually be able to do it? Now, the reason I do mention if they can actually do it is going to come down to one important factor. That is, of course, going to be the manufacturers in this game, and if they would actually allow something like that to exist. We do know even back in Need for Speed, they are still having issues with getting different cars in there, and I would almost say that's probably going to be a growing trend with like the next Need for Speed if we ever have one. I'm also going to be making more videos about that in the future, but if they were to have different cars in there, like for example back in Need for Speed 2015 we had the Supra, a lot of players still go back into that game and most likely drive it. Because if you go into Payback or even Need for Speed Heat and Unbound, there is obviously not going to be Toyota whatsoever. But if we go back in time though and look at something like Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012, we had one of the most iconic cars in that game ever, which is of course the Lexus LFA, which I do hope someday that car will end up coming into Motorfest, but one of the big things I did hear about Toyota is going to be like the illegal street racing aspect, which in some ways I guess you could say Motorfest is slightly different. Like many of the events I guess are going to be like a closed course, even though they are probably still going to be on the road, which technically there is traffic and you can run into them, which is kind of illegal, I think. But for me, though, that probably is going to be a bigger factor here. Like, yeah, you probably do want to have police chases in the game, but at the same time of that, we definitely do not want to take away from the vehicle list or different updates that might end up coming in the future that could be stopped because of that said thing. Now, I would say in a lot of ways, though, having the interception units is pretty dang cool in Motorfest. Like, you can't obviously do, like, a real police chase against, like, the NPCs or, like, the AI. Then again, guys, think for 1 second here. Imagine the police in this game being like the AI in the level 5 events. My goodness, it's probably going to be like the Corvettes from Unbound or even Need for Speed Heat. You are going to be in for a lovely treat, plus the insane rhinos. Imagine having that in this game. But we do right now have the interception units that you could obviously jump into, like let's say you are a crew of 4. You can then have 2 players in like 2 interception units, then have the other 2 in like regular vehicles and have like your own custom police chases. But let's be honest here though, if you can actually get in a crew at least when making this video, was still going to be a challenge even seeing your crew members, so having like invisible police cars behind you is probably not going to be a very fun experience. Now overall though guys, I do have to admit once again that like the police chase update back in the Crew 2 wasn't all that great. And we also can think back to the Crew 1 having like the calling all units update that also brought like weird weapons we'd see in like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. We can all agree Need for Speed Hot Pursuit probably did the weapon design pretty dang well, which don't get me wrong though, I do know a lot of players are still not going to be the biggest fan of having like crazy weapons coming out of a car for like a police chase. We do know seeing like a spike strip or even like an EMP shooting out of your car into that one probably isn't going to be the biggest thing that many players would actually want to see in it. Now I'm not going to lie here though guys, I was a huge fan of the weapon system that was in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Like it was so dang fun being able to hit that crazy turbo or like even using that EMP and shooting a spike strip out of your car to knock out one of the other racers, or even using a police car and knocking out like the racers there, and even being a racer yourself and taking out the police police cars chasing you. Now, even though the weapon system was a cool design, I do know at the exact same time many players are most likely going to want an old-fashioned system to something we'd seen like Need for Speed Unbound or even like Need for Speed Heat, to where it's basically going to be like you and your driving skills going against, a lot of police. I would say something like that would not only be a lot of fun, but also just insanely cool to actually be able to do. For me, though, I do admit one of my biggest concerns about having like police chases is probably going to be like the overall car list in that game itself. We do know vehicles in Need for Speed were getting removed and also will most likely never come back in the future. Like, I'm not going to lie, guys, if I ever see a Lexus LFA or even like a Toyota Supra again, I am going to be insanely shocked to see those cars ever go in a Need for Speed game in the future, almost guaranteeing that that most likely will never happen. Now, a lot of players are asking for certain vehicles in Motorfest to come out like the LFA, or even future vehicles from Toyota and even Lexus. Like, what if we got like something like an RCF as well? One of the only things I would say here that most likely are going to concern me is the car list not actually happening. If players actually want something like a proper police chasing type of feature, a lot of the vehicles in this game would most likely not even be in here, and a good example of that is probably going to be something like the Mark V and the Mark IV Supra. A lot of players have been asking for these cars to be in racing games for basically forever, and a lot of players even go back to Need for Speed 2015 for the Supra in that game. So if a lot of players want something like a Lexus LFA, let's be honest, a proper police chasing feature most likely will never happen, but who knows, guys, maybe they might add something to where you can use like the interception units and go after other players, or like maybe go after like a bank robbery thing. But even with that being said, though, I would even say many players are probably not going to be the biggest fan of a system like the takedowning thing that was back in the Crew 2. Not going to lie, guys, as I did mention earlier, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I would say a lot of players are probably going to enjoy it for maybe like a day or two, and then after that, they're probably going to be like, yeah, taking down these AI, I'm just not really enjoying the system like this. I don't think it's that fun. Can we get like actual NPCs that can chase us or something? Like, that is most likely going to come to surface insanely quick. Overall, though, guys, I would like to know what you think about this in the comments below. I would say to this point, who knows, maybe in the future we might end up seeing this, but we can also see like the issues that are most likely going to follow it. We do see this also plaguing the Need for Speed franchise, even though, yes, going after these police chases and doing them is going to be so dang fun to actually be in. Of course, being in a racing game and nothing else. I guess one way we could look at this is, who knows, maybe in the future we might see something like this in Motorfest, maybe like a year or two down the line. We do know many of the different updates in the Crew 2 came afterwards, even though like the police chases are like, I guess you could say like the interception police chases with like the Vault Hunters. That was going to be like early on like updates in that game, but who knows, guys, maybe in the future we might actually see something like this in Motorfest. If I was like a betting person right now, I would probably say it's most likely going to be a no, and that is going to come down to like the vehicle list and possible future cars that are most likely going to show up in this game in the future. Now, if I have to be honest here, I would say, can I take a Lexus LFA or have police chases in this game? I am most likely easily going to pick the Lexus LFA and having that car in here. That is probably going to sound absolutely insane to many people. I would like to know what you guys think about this entire thing in the comments below. Do you think something like an entire like police chase thing could come in this game? Or is it most likely going to be a bit too far-fetched for Motorfest?